quorum.
Yeah, probably nobody wants to be out inside unless they have air conditioning going like I do right now. So,
Mhm.
Summer months, people are also probably vacationing. It's hard to get
yeah.
forms in summer.
The other
Um,
thing I had mentioned to you guys before was maybe changing the meeting time even just to like 6 or 6:30. Because 5's, I don't know about anybody else that works, but 5 is really hard, you know?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to other times. This is just historically the traditional time it's been. And so we just kept it because there wasn't like a lot of energy to change the time. But I'm open to other options if folks want to.
There are other town meetings, though, that often start at 6 or 6:30 or 7.
Yeah, like
so-
the town meetings in
me.
Pittsford usually start 6, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Anyway, we don't, yeah, since we don't have a quorum, I think we can just sort of go over like an update of what's been going on since the last time we met. So, last meeting, we did a couple things, right? We approved hiring Amanda's company for project management services. The other thing that we did is we approved applying for the grant. Was it H360? Is that the number?
Yeah, H360, right?
H360 grant, pre-construction grant. So Amanda did the lion's share of the work to get that done, and we applied late. When was it? Late last month.
On the
And-
27th, we
Yeah,
submitted it.
and we were approved. Was it? I think it was last week on Monday, right? So
Yeah.
Monday, what's today? The 20th. It would
It
have
was
been
the 11th.
The 11th.
Yeah.
So we made just a very short presentation of the grant, and we were awarded the grant, and the grant amount I think was $441 million, or sorry, not million, $441,000. And it's to cover things like project management services, legal fees, accounting, the negotiations with potential partners, that kind of stuff. So any questions or comments or anything so far?
Where the money come from? From what grant?
It's H360 is the well, I mean, we haven't gotten the money yet. I
Right,
don't think, but we got approved for the grant.
but yeah, you got approved for it, right?
Yeah, from it's VCBB, the
Which is who? Who is that?
Vermont
I'm
Community
just curious.
Broadband Board. Is that?
Well,
Vermont Community Broadband Board.
Yeah.
okay, all right. A telecom, right?
Okay. So that was a lot of work. I want to thank mostly Amanda, but also Bill and Tim helped with that as well. Last month we had started talking to the references that were given by the respondents to our RFP for a partner. We haven't really had any, nobody really said anything that was negative about anybody. We had a meeting earlier. It was this week, right, Laura?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was earlier this
2 days
week,
ago.
to sort of come
Monday.
to sort of finalize where we are with respect to questions for clarification from the two bidders. Amanda's been working on a letter that we're going to issue probably early next week, I would think, back to the bidders to ask for some clarifying questions. trying to think what else I missed with that. I mean, the small team that's working on that has been Laura, me, Bill, and Tim. If anybody else wants to help or look at any of the questions that we're asking or any of that kind of stuff, you're welcome to just have a chat with me or Amanda, and we can loop you in if you're interested. I think the next meeting of our little sub team is going to be Friday morning. Trying to think what else. Did I miss any?
Somebody asked me a question when I was talking to, I just gave the select board a brief overview of what you guys were doing, and one of them asked is if we contract with one of the RFPs, does that mean that if somebody in the community has to use that, has their broadband, does it exclude them from using any other?
No. What it does is it's for, first of all, it's for fiber, right? It's only for fiber, Tracy. So if somebody has Comcast as an example, or Starlink or whatever, right? And they're happy with that, they don't need to change, right? If they want fiber, if they don't have any internet and they want fiber, yeah, they would be going through that, one of those companies or whoever the successful company is for that area. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
yeah, no worries. Trying to think, what else did anything I missed, Laura or Amanda or anybody else? The other topic, Mark had asked for letters to the various select boards. Because we've been working on the grant and getting going through the bid tabulation and getting ready for the clarifications stages. I don't know, Amanda, have you haven't produced any of those, right?
I've started on a draft, and it would look very similar for most municipalities aside from individual numbers. I told Mark I would try to get a draft completed by Friday. And I don't know who wants to review that, if it's each town that wants to review that, or if it's just you, Tony, because I know you want more to review.
No, I don't. I mean, I'm fine to review it. I just, if Mark, if you have some suggestions on what you think your select board would or like to hear, or if there's other folks who have some suggestions about what the select board would want to hear, let Amanda know.
Sure.
These are requests for ARPA funds, right? That's what
Yes.
that's the
Yep.
topic. Sorry, I wasn't not sure I was clear when I started this off.
We did reach out to Bennington, to Southern Vermont to see what they had done, and they have not requested any funding. They had 2 other CUDs they named that might have. Otherwise, I haven't actually gotten in touch with the CUD that's requested ARPA funds. I know Maple is really aggressive very early on with asking for donations from towns. So that's someone else you could ask. They've taken a different track overall.
Yeah.
I think the biggest fear from the select boards is like, is it going to affect existing funding? And like what I hear from the board is that it's like funds that they're already earmarked for other areas. And that through, so their concern was, I said, no, I didn't think so, but that you guys were working on something. But their biggest fear was that, we've got funds and we've already earmarked it for different places. So we really don't have the funding to provide something. So clarity of where and how they could access those ARPA funds, I think would be helpful.
Is that overall they don't know how to access ARPA funds, or how it relates to CUDs?
How it relates to CUDs.
Okay.
So they were like, how towns are, you mentioned asking for money and they immediately go into, at least the people on my board, includes my husband, by the way, is that they go all freaky. So I was like, guys, it's not going to affect their current funding. or stuff that you've already earmarked, that this is going to be something you can access additionally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think the other question we need to answer is that if some of the towns were to contribute ARPA funds, but not others, how does that, what do we do with that information? Or what, does that mean that town X that contributed ARPA funds, gets ahead in the queue? I don't know.
Yeah, not gonna work.
Yeah, I can try to get in touch with those other CUDs to see if they've answered that question, because you wouldn't be the only towns, asking those questions.
That's true.
In terms of priority, how it affects your existing ARPA funds. Has your select board received a presentation from the RPC in terms of ARPA funding, what it means for you, your time to use it, and how you can apply it?
I don't know, to be honest
Okay.
with you.
Okay.
I know they were familiar with ARPA funds, but I don't know where they are currently on that. But I will ask.
Okay, well, I can also dig up some resources and send it along in general.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
It was, what else? Is there any, we still haven't gotten to.
We need 10 for a quorum. We have 9.
Yeah, we still haven't gotten a quorum. So, okay.
Tony,
Yes, sir.
getting back to your previous statement that all towns may not be contributing ARPA funding to Otter Creek CUD. Select boards may want some kind of accountability, and I don't think we have any mechanism to provide it, of if a particular town contributes ARPA funds to Otter Creek CUD, how will they know that those funds are spent in that town or municipality and not just go out into our general fund? And they may ask that question.
Yeah.
And we have no mechanism at this point,
Uh,
as far as accounting, to say, okay, you contributed 30,000, that money will be spent in your town. I don't know. They may ask that question. So
I don't know how to, I wouldn't know how to answer that
Yeah, we
question.
don't-
You're right, Larry.
we don't have an answer. Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that. It's the same, it's very similar to the question of, if town X contributes, but town Y doesn't, does that mean anything with respect to, priority or, is the town that doesn't contribute, are they somehow penalized, or, is the town that did contribute somehow, advantaged some way? I mean, at the end of the day, the more money the more public funds we have, the less money that the partners need to contribute. But I don't think that's going to change because of our model. I don't think that's going to change like what the constituents pay for broadband who use the service, if that makes sense, right? Go
I
ahead.
was wondering if we could add this, maybe Tony, as to one of the questions for the partners, if they can, at some point, we'd asked about a more detailed overview of their build out phasing. If we had an idea of how that could affect pricing, could they include how much it would cost per municipality based on the information they have?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, maybe then if a town member town gives, then we can then have a specific item to allot that funding towards.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there anything in the mission statement of the CUD that addresses this at all?
That addresses ARPA funds?
Well, the funding in general from each town. Right. Are we all in this together, or are we all separate towns looking to get a contract for all of us?
Well,
Tony, do you want to, or?
Well, the idea, I think, Mark, and others can
Right.
correct me if I go astray here, but I think the idea is that the towns have banded together as the CUD for a
Right.
couple reasons. One is so that they have access to these funds that the law has made available. right? Because if you're just a, you can apply as an individual town, but you can't, you may not get as much, you may not have as much buying clout, I guess, is what it comes down to with any potential partners or anything if you try to go it alone. And the other part of this is I think we're trying to, get everybody basically the same deal, essentially, to the greatest extent that we can. We may have some differences between the towns that are served by, depending on what the partnership structure looks like. There may be some differences between the towns that are predominantly served by CCI versus towns that are predominantly served by Otelco or whatever. But anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, Mark, but
no, because I need to look at the basic structure of what we're trying to do, I guess.
Well,
So,
the formation of the CUD, as with all the CUDs across the state, was to take advantage of the opportunity created when the state enabled in legislation the creation of a CUD, which has the same legal formalization, legal form as a town. So it's new in that concept or in that aspect. And the primary goal being to provide universal service for whatever that member or whatever that region covers for its members. The heat of this, we had to highlight consistently, and it's still part of it, that the CUD exists to ensure that wherever it works, that you're providing internet so people can access education, health services, and there's a quality to that. So it's not one town for itself. As each CUD, you're joining the team. The mission statement reflects degrees of unity, but primarily why it exists, and that is to provide modern access to internet services to facilitate education, health services, and things such as that.
My understanding is also, so we don't piecemeal it. So there's more consistency within those areas of services. So
That makes
services are not like when you're going town by town, there isn't, rather than having stuff that's done on a district CUD district wide, provides more consistency of service as well as infrastructure, right? Am I?
yeah, and I think that was what I was trying to say with the buying power comment.
right.
Right. If you have more potential customers for any potential partner, then you have more clout, essentially more buying clout. So,
Larry?
and like I think like what Amanda was saying, one of our obligations is universal service, right? Which basically means that we have, for any of the unserved or underserved locations, we have to, at the end of this project, we have to be in a position to provide them access to fiber optic broadband that's at least 100 megabits per second upload and download speed, right?
Okay.
Tony, one of the key functions of OCCUD was in relation to buying power. A individual CUD would never be able to purchase fiber hardware and cabinets alone. There's such a demand nationwide for everything.
Right.
So it took the 9 CUDs and even struggling to get the fiber optic that they have purchased so far. So getting back to an individual town, they wouldn't even answer the phone. So everything pretty much has to be bought in bulk in order for a distributor to even get their attention.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know if the- yes, Laura.
Getting back to the ARPA funding, I think, there needs to, the CUD needs to really have some more conversation or thought about it. If you remember the way the state has shown the amount of funds that each town is supposed to provide out of their ARPA was based on the mileage of the, you know, the broadband expansion in their towns. I can just see a lot of issues with that. One is that we know we have incorrect data at this point. So like my town has a very small amount. It's a small amount of ARPA funds. You know, probably my select board would approve it, but maybe they won't. But some towns have a substantial, enormous amount that is that is on that list. So is the Otter Creek CUD, you know, if we're asking for the ARPA funds, are we going by that list or are we not? Are we going to say, request 10% of your ARPA funding, of your overall, you know, should we think of a different mechanism? Or maybe should we leave it all, forget about the ARPA funding?
I think you're right, Laura. There are a lot of questions, you know, like what Larry had brought up and what I had talked about in terms of, you know, if it's one thing if everybody contributes sort of pari passu, you know, but if they don't, then you know, do we get, you know, how do we prove that the money's spent in their town? How do we prove that it's,
Yeah,
you know, going, I mean, we can prove that it's going to broadband. That's easy enough. But, you know, how do we prove that it's going to their town? How do we prove that it's not going, you know, not going somewhere else? Those are very hard questions to answer at this point. So,
Couldn't you find out just by the amount of people that have increased their usage of broadband? So could community availability of broadband be a marker, like towns that formerly did not have broadband, and how underserved populations did not have access? Couldn't we say that, you know, certainly get figures that show us that, you know, that broadband is available to your population, and we have seen an increase in accessibility in your community. Therefore, it's a marker of how the funding that we've received has been used to support communities.
I guess
That would depend on the data available. I think kind of what Laura was getting at is like mapping what they have on the ground isn't accurate at this point. But otherwise, those would be excellent markers. Sorry, Tony, I cut you off.
no, I think that's true too. I mean, that could be an indicator, right, that it's been helpful. But I think, you know, to prove that those dollars went to, you know, that town would be more difficult the way we're set up, right? And with the plan that we have with respect to you know, having a partner to help us build out the network.
I think maybe we're overthinking it a little bit here because no, seriously, because the towns could give all of their ARPA funds, and I'm telling you, it isn't even going to come close to what it's going to cost to put that in their town. So it's like, it's the fact that, you know, and the other aspect you've got to consider is we will end up working with incumbents. So, you know, we're hopefully not going to have to go out and directly buy fiber and all these things, but we're really going to have to, like in my case, that Go Speed that used to be Otelco is probably going to be the provider here in Hubbardton. And, you know, because they're a commercial entity, they're only going to do things where they get a return to, you know, the owners of the company, be it if they're stock, I don't know. But so obviously we're going to have to probably put up money to put, you know, this fiber in the places where they would just look at it and say there's no return.
Well, and that's the entire idea, right? Is that without us, they don't have access to the public funding, Chris.
That's
and so
correct.
with us, if they're working with us, then they have access to the grant money that's available for our towns, things like that.
You know, I think the fact that if that happens, I don't think the towns need to have an accounting mechanism, or it's like, listen, you know, it costs umpteen hundreds of millions of dollars to do this, and you gave 200,000. hello, it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like you sending in $25 to the federal government and saying, hey, can you account for where that went, in
Yeah.
goodness? Are you kidding me? I can't do that. Thank you for their contribution.
Okay, the only other update I have is that, and I talked about this a little bit at the executive board meeting last week. Google Fiber had reached out again. I guess they had reached out previously last year. I had a conversation with them. I guess it was late last week, or yeah, it would have been late last week, and they asked for some information that's basically public information. It's number of miles unserved in our towns, the number of unserved and underserved people, how many buildings, all that kind of stuff. I've got a meeting to follow up with them. I don't remember the date. I want to say it's like the 27th or something. 28th. Just to follow up with them. At this point, I've already told them that, I mean, the first question I asked them is, why didn't you guys respond to our RFP?
Good point.
But they recognize that they're not, they didn't do that. I'm trying to make sure that if they were to come to the table with some kind of compelling case to go with them and sort of ditch the process that we've been on, then obviously I'd need to come back to the board and say, hey, I think this is a compelling case to do something different than the road that we're on. But that hasn't happened yet. And I'm watch this space, I guess, but I'm not thinking that it's very likely that they're going to come to the table with something that's so compelling that we would ditch what we're doing now. So any questions or comments or concerns about that?
I think, something like with Google Fiber, they're looking, if there was a lot of information up here to harvest, then they would have compelling reason to invest the money. And it's a business proposition for them first and foremost. And that's probably why they didn't want to answer your RFP, because they're doing this at a much higher level. They're trying to figure out, is there even a business case for this? If there was, they probably would say, don't worry, we'll pay for the fiber, because they're looking at a return in the end.
Yeah. I mean, they are working with two of the CUDs. What is it? It's Lamoille and Northeast. Is that right, Amanda?
I think NEK.
Yeah, and North NEK. They're working with two of the other CUDs already. Anyway, like I said, I had a chat with them. I gave them the information that they asked for, which was basically public information anyway. And I'll see, if they come back with anything that seems like it's interesting or compelling, I will get back to the board. But
It's Northwest. I apologize.
yeah, Northwest. Sorry. That's it. Any other questions or comments or anything that I missed, Amanda, or anybody else?
I think so.
Not really.
So I guess the next, I mean, we can't actually have a vote on anything, but I would ask if folks are interested in trying to change the time or date of the meetings. Like Tracy suggested, then perhaps, and no worries, perhaps, if there's some energy about that, please, email or reach out to me or Amanda, and we'll see what we can do.
I have
Laura, is
a
that your-
thought is, you know, once again, we're having a hard time getting a quorum. We have a lot of members who have not shown up ever at meetings since
Right.
I've been here, which has been a short time. Could we do a little like outreach and do one of those, what's that? Google Calendar thing where you ask, you know, what, I don't know if why people haven't shown up is scheduling issue, could be, or
Yeah.
is just because they're not really engaged.
Right. I think Amanda,
little
you
about
have
some.
access to, do you have access to the doodle poll thing that we
Doodle
did?
poll.
I
that's
could do
right.
a Google poll or a doodle poll, but I'll send out a poll.
Okay. Thanks, Laura. Anybody else?
I do know that the third Wednesday is we usually have a DRB meeting scheduled. Luckily for this month, we do not. We have it for next week. But traditionally, I'm on the DRB and we meet 6 o'clock Wednesday.
Yeah.
The third Wednesday of every month.
Okay.
So if you could take that into account. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
right.
Appreciate you making the time to actually show up.
Thank
Sorry I was late again. Sorry we didn't have a quorum, but I think I've caught you up on everything that's all the news that's fit the print at least.
you.
Well, I was late too.
Don't worry about it, Brenda. It's not a big deal. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Have a
All
good
right.
night.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I guess, thanks.
Bye.